after 2, and I apologize. This will be my way of telling you that last night at about 5:30, we lost power completely for several hours. And it never quite processes in my mind that when the power goes off, all the technology equipment powers down and has to be then pumped back up. Anyway, this is the Pastor's Chat. I'm Pastor Lou Kilgore, and I'm happy to be here finally with you today. My yawn is on time anyway. I am here doing this as a part of the ministry, the outreach, seeking to be a blessing. Really, I know that's a religious word, but it's a very practical meaning behind it, trying to do something that may not at first seem like much, but tends to amount to something by offering a time of conversation and listening. It's a one-way conversation, which is somewhat awkward, but seems to be working as at least an avenue for exchange of ideas, as I offer something and then you think about it and you send me an email or you communicate with me and a chat takes place. So, we are in day of December, and it's a warm beginning, and I like that. But I'm wondering how you are today. How are you with the rising alarm about the presence of the virus in our community? We've got a virus. we have a virus, and it's not pleasant. I have a relative now in my family, not in my immediate family, but in my extended family, 2 of them who have the virus and are very sick. I got an alert today from a parent who is a healthcare worker in our school, and they have come down with the virus. Oh my goodness. I said this before, when the virus launched itself into the Northeast, I felt like it was watching a storm cloud approach, because first I could see it and feel its effect far off, and people who were not really that close to us got infected, and then the news of who had it and who didn't kept coming closer and closer and closer and closer to home. And I feel that again now. It's coming there's a wider community around me that I feel, I can sense this presence. We're doing everything over here on our end to protect ourselves from it and be reasonable. But that doesn't mean it doesn't make things hard. The isolation is difficult. My wife and I have cut down our circulation almost entirely. We go out for what we absolutely have to go out for, and otherwise we stay home. And that's a different thing, isn't it? Now, I know some of you are watching and you say, well, welcome to my world, right? You've been living a kind of COVID-isolated world for a long time. I have one younger member of my congregation who said to me, I don't feel, this was back during the shutdown, he lives a very solitary life anyway. He said, it really hasn't affected my life all that much. But that's not true for most of us. To those of you who are used to this, we could use your advice. We could use your advice on how do we stay vital? How do we stay alert? How do we not miss the joys and happiness of these moments? So as I told you before, yesterday, during the season of Advent, we were going to try to open up another door each day in terms of what is the meaning of Advent, what is the season of Advent. This is our Advent calendar. I don't have a piece of candy for you behind every new topic, but yesterday we talked about the date of Christmas, and we talked about the longest night. How the Christian community Actually, this started in Canada. I should give the Canadians credit for it. It's called Blue Christmas in Canada. And the Canadian churches were doing this thing of claiming this day of winter solstice. They saw in it a dynamic that's very Christian at its heart, and thought, we need that dynamic in our year, in our pattern of holidays and rituals and feasts, if you will. So, when I was younger, just beginning, I learned about Blue Christmas in Canada, and I just was fascinated by it, because the church has had very little of liturgies or rituals that help in times of loss and trouble. So Blue Christmas, longest night service, is a chance for the church to do in liturgy what I do in pastoral counseling and conversation. To be honest about how we feel in spite of how we want to feel. To name our griefs. Some of you wrote to me after yesterday's thing and named your griefs. Things that just don't occur to us because we weren't there 25 years ago when, your daughter died on Thanksgiving, or your husband died on Christmas Eve. And, these things, they never leave your life. They never leave your life. But they become a way in which you, the truth of who you are, becomes isolated and alone. That's yesterday. So today, I thought we could talk a little bit about this theme of Advent. The advent of something is like, it's the beginning. Advent is the beginning of the beginning. They say, it's not the end, but it's the end of the beginning. Well, today, December 1st, and the early days of December are the beginning of the beginning. It's the beginning of a thought or an idea or an action, and trying to posture ourselves to be ready is how the scripture texts talk about it, to be ready. There's so many metaphors, but one of them, if you play baseball or if you've watched baseball, you know the posture that the catcher gets in when the pitch is about to come in. And the crouched position, the mitt turned towards where they think it's coming from, the second hand ready to secure the ball, eyes glued in a direction. The catcher's job is to be Advent ready, because the pitch is coming. And part of that is to be aware of the signs and signals of things that go on. So Advent is a season of readiness. Now, what are we ready for? What are we getting ready for? I mean, yes, you could say we're getting ready for Christmas, but you and I both know Christmas already happened. Like the birth of Jesus happened 2,000 years ago. We're not getting ready for the birth of Jesus. And besides, as it's told to us, on the day that Jesus was actually born, no one was ready. No one. No, there's all kinds of the themes, of the tragic themes of Christmas. There was no room for them in the inn. They had to walk because of the census. There's all kinds of lack of readiness for the actual day of Jesus' birth. And truthfully, I think we have to, if we're going to read the Bible and have it have some kind of relevance, then it's all right to let some of the practicality of the events land in our lives. Jesus' birth, the arrival of pregnancy to Mary, and the eventual journey to Bethlehem, and the birth went by without notice. Without notice. Now, you think to yourself, that's not true. I mean, the story is told. What about the shepherds and the angels? Right? But the only reason we know about that is because we carried the tradition with us. I'm saying back in the first century, at the birth of Jesus, this was a no-name woman, from a no-name part of the Middle East who was pregnant, and she was pregnant in conditions not easily explained. And this wasn't a great story. It didn't follow the norms or didn't draw attention in positive ways. And Joseph and Mary, yes, they traveled. There was a census being taken. They traveled to Bethlehem, but by the time they got there, all of the family accommodations, these large extended families were under responsibility to provide hosting spaces when the family came into town. But for Mary to be pregnant, a host family had to have a very specific place for a pregnant woman who was about to give birth. So the stories about, there's no room for them in the inn. The gospel text says they did not have preparation. They were not prepared. Her extended family, or his extended family, I don't know which, the genealogies make it that both of them went back to the city of their extended family, which is where you had to go to register, like you would have to go to register to vote. Here, you had to register to be counted on the census. You had to go back and be counted in the cities and towns where you were born, where you had come from. So Mary and Joseph both traveled back to Bethlehem, and there they were planning to rejoin their extended family, but there was no room in that compound. The word "in" is in the compound, and the room that there wasn't there was no birthing room. There was no place for a woman who was about to give birth to a child. So there was no preparation. There was no preparation. There was no awareness of anything significant that was happening. All the events of the life of Jesus that we know about, everything that we think of such significance and such importance, was all written down and described looking back. Looking back. The Apostle Paul says that the disciples, they had physical reality, contact with Jesus. But they didn't know who he was, and they didn't know the significance of it. They were not prepared. It's only looking back. So the season of Advent is almost impossible. It really is. Because what it says is, we want to posture our lives to be receptive, to be open, like the catcher, to the pitch that's coming from God. Now, our track record is not good on this. It is not good. We tend, the record of our human experience on this earth is we tend to be looking that way when God is at work and the things of God at work are over this way. We tend to be looking down when the most significant things are what's happening up. I used to, during in the middle of August, there is a Perseus meteor shower every year. And I thrilled to taking my kids, I'd get them out of bed at night. I really would go to their beds and wake them up at 10 o'clock and say, come on, get your pajamas on, we're going to bring a sleeping bag, and we're going to go out in the middle. We had a little field in the back of our house, which I loved, and we would drag our sleeping bags out there, and we would lay on our backs and stare up at the sky. And it could be really frustrating because there would be, 6 or 7 of us out there, and we'd be looking up at the sky, concentrating, I'm going to see it, I'm going to see it, I'm going to see it this time. And someone who's laying there would go, look over there. And because they had been looking in that direction, they saw the shooting star. But by the time the rest of us looked, nope, it was gone. You had to already be looking in the direction in which the meteor was going to come to be able to see it. And how would you know? How would you know? You didn't know. So you just had to be, maybe perchance, looking in the direction. Now sometimes, I used to tell my kids, open your eyes as wide as you can and don't fix them any one direction. Just kind of keep them moving, and maybe you'll see a flash over in the periphery of your vision, and you can move quickly to see it. Sometimes that would allow you to see a shooting star that was not already in your eyesight, in your sight of view. Now sometimes the star's tail and burn would be, or the meteor's tail and burn would be longer. And those were the joyous ones, right? Those were the ones where a really large burst of meteor light would begin, and someone would say, over there to the left, and everybody would look, and there was still a burn that you could see, and everybody celebrated. We all saw it, we all saw it. We all saw it. There is something in that activity which is behind this door in the Advent calendar. Being ready, getting ready to see in a miraculous way, to see what God might be doing in your life today. To see it. If you look back, you'll see it. Once it's passed, you'll see it. Not like the shooting star, because once it's passed, it's gone. But on reflection, sometimes a month or a year, you go, oh, I didn't know that was what was happening. But the posturing of Advent invites almost an impossible thing. That is, Lord, make us ready, right here, right now, for what you're doing. For the spark of the activity of your life with us. Even in our sheltered and sequestered lives, show us the spark of your love. Let us see it, God. We're ready. We're here. We got our catcher's mitt ready. We got our posture set. It is another day in the march toward that day of the birth of Jesus. And we ask you to help us to be ready. God bless you, my friends. I will see you tomorrow for one more day of the approach of Christmas in the season of Advent, and our efforts to understand and to know more about what it is this Christian faith really calls us to do and to be. God bless you, my friends. I will talk to you tomorrow at 2 o'clock, as long as the power doesn't go off.